And okay, so now we're recording. I don't have to worry about forgetting. But I want to thank everyone for logging in today, for being here. I want to thank Lydia for, prompting this and pushing it. I want to thank Tony for being here. And like Lydia said, he spoke for me about a year ago, similar setup here on Zoom. And I first met him, gosh, I don't know, 2013 maybe or 14.
Something like that.
Yeah, where he was speaking at a VA rep conference. And so he's been kind of my quote unquote Freddie Mac connection for all these years. And so I really, really appreciate the fact that he's willing to do this for us, because what he does is, he's constantly giving presentations to people. He's constantly, filling people in and keeping us up to date on what's happening with Freddie Mac and the industry. And the fact when I am me, I'm not a big organization. The fact that he's willing to say yes to me, I feel honored and privileged for that. So thank you for being here. Before I turn it over to you though, I want to really quickly just acknowledge the other Nexa mortgage loan originators on here. So, some of you have known for a long time that, I made the switch. I've been at Nexa Mortgage now a little over a year. And I'm now, not just marketing and business development, I'm originating loans. However, I also recently started building a team. So I have some people on my team here that I want to introduce, and I have some loan originators on here that work with me that are licensed in other states. So Lydia, I know you've got people that that are coming on from other states. And so I want my LOs and the LOs that work at Nexa just to kind of say hi, announce who they are, and tell you guys what states they're licensed in. So if we can work with you, whether you're in Arizona or another state, we can pretty much work anywhere. So why don't we go ahead and start with Josh?
Me first. Yay.
Yeah.
So Josh Culver, I am here in Arizona. I've been with Nexa for a little over a year, 10 years in the industry, coming up in April. I am licensed in 8 total states. I'm going to go from west to east: Washington, California, Arizona, Texas, Illinois, Colorado, Wisconsin, and Florida. So if I can be of assistance to you, happy to help. Thank you.
Okay, have you practiced going in order from east to west?
Pretty much.
Or west to east? Okay, awesome. That's kind of impressive.
Can I ask a question, Josh?
Sure.
Is there any way that you can put that in your emails or send it to us so that we know what states you are affiliated with, and I appreciate it with everybody else?
Yeah, when I send the link of the recording, I'll send the LO's contact info as well.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, you're welcome. Valerie, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Yes, Valerie Despain. I do partner together with my husband, Richard, and we are the Despain team. We have been with Nexa. Richard switched over, I think, in March, and I just switched over a couple of months ago, coming from the retail world, so it's super exciting. Licensed in Arizona only, and we've been in the industry 10 years already.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And then we have 2 more people that are actually truly part of a team with me. And I'm working on helping them build and grow their business. And I'm so excited to have them. I have Ben, who's been at Nexa. How many months, Ben?
About 5.5.
Awesome. And then why don't you go ahead and tell them all the states you're licensed in too, since you're also in multiple states.
Yeah, I'm here in Chandler, Arizona, but along with Arizona, I'm also licensed in Oregon, California, Nevada, Florida, and Nebraska.
Awesome.
And that was kind of in geographical order, I think.
Right?
Pretty close. Yeah.
All right, and next time you have to remind me, because I'm thinking about this now, that my Nebraska list, I don't think got an invite to this. So remind me next time, and I won't forget. Tony, we might have to do another one. And I'm super, super, super excited to have Patrick coming on board. We're waiting on his licensing to be official, and it should be any day now. And Patrick, go ahead, say hi.
Hey guys, like Alicia said, I'm brand new, just came over to Nexa. My license is just getting finished now. She actually told me that I was just hired as Josh's stunt double. So, I'm really just here to help him out. No, I'm not currently just licensed in Arizona, hoping to get more and, grow with the team, but super brand new, super green, coming over from commercial development for about 13 years and just decided to go private.
So yay! All right, I'm super excited to have everybody on here. I will send out all of their contact info. And Chris wasn't able to log on today. However, I also have Chris Martinez who speaks Spanish. So if you ever need a bilingual Spanish speaking loan officer, we have that as well. So, all right, Tony, I'm going to turn it over to you. I have given you screen sharing ability. If you need anything else from me, let me know. But take it away.
All right. Well, Alicia, Lydia, thank you guys for having me or inviting me. And then thanks everybody else for coming out to listen. My name is Tony Hutchinson. I am the Director of Government and Industry Relations at Freddie Mac. In that role, I am responsible for outreach to a number of different trade organizations spanning the housing world, from real estate professionals to the folks on the mortgage banking side, all the way to the credit unions. And recently we've gotten into work with some financial technology companies. So we're just out there trying to figure out what's going on in the world of housing, who's touching it, and what are they saying about housing. My role has a slight I don't say a slight intersection, but it has an intersection with the government. So we pay attention to what's going on both legislatively and regulatorily. And then we try to share how that impacts our business with the folks in the field like you, mainly so that we can get information from you guys about how that's going to impact the consumer ultimately. That way we're able to get firsthand knowledge about what's going on in the marketplace, and then we can share that with our company, as well as those that may be making policy decisions that impact the business. And we share those up all the way to our regulator. Sometimes they make their way off to Congress through our regulator. And we also share those with some of our other policy partners out there, like the organizations I mentioned. So groups like the National Association of Realtors, the Mortgage Bankers, the National Association of Federal Credit Unions, all the way down the line. We do a lot of work sharing information. So I expect this conversation, well, what we're going to have here is to be a bit of a conversation. My plan is to give you guys an update on what's going on with Freddie Mac. I'm going to talk a little bit about the forbearances, a forbearance program out there, what we see on the horizon in terms of foreclosures, and really give you an idea of how we're trying to mitigate some of that and what our strategy is, so you guys will know it going forward. And Lydia, just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying about everybody needing to know this, part of the reason that I come out to organizations like yours, and some of the organizations are even smaller and some of them are larger, but we are trying to get as much information out there as possible so folks can help consumers. As I mentioned about a year ago, the primary role during this pandemic was to ensure that people stayed in their homes. We needed people to have a place to shelter in place so that they could stay healthy. If they were ill, they could get themselves healthy, but we didn't want folks to have to worry about their health as well as their housing. So everything that we could do to take housing out of the equation, meaning if you lost your job, if you became sick, if something occurred that was going to prevent you from being able to pay your mortgage, we put a program in place so that we would be able to keep you in the property, and then figure out on the back end how to either keep you in that property or help you move out of that property in a nicer manner, if you will. But the real goal is to keep people in their homes, and that's what we've really been out there working hard to do. And with that, the one thing I will share with you guys, the latest numbers show that there's only about 1.5 million people throughout the United States who are still in forbearance. Now, we don't have a breakdown of that by state, and part of the reason we don't have a breakdown of that by state is because only about 1/3 of the folks have loans with the GSEs, meaning Freddie and Fannie Mae. There's a little more than a third that have loans with Ginnie, which would include FHA and VA. And then you've got the other third, which is outside of the government programs, but are also participating in this. And because the numbers are so small for all the programs, folks don't like to give out the numbers by state or any more granular level because it can be back engineered, I guess, so that you can kind of find those people. In privacy, we don't want to go ahead and put people's business out in the marketplace. But the one thing I will tell you is those numbers continue to come down. And because we have foreclosure moratoriums that remain in place, and the programs that these folks are in are just beginning to expire. Some of the folks who have been in these foreclosure programs, forbearance programs, because their expiration dates are now coming up, we haven't seen mass foreclosures. And the thing that's kind of interesting is I've had folks reach out to me from a number of nonprofits saying, hey, we're really getting to that point where we're getting a little anxious. Are we going to see a lot of foreclosures? Are there going to be a lot of people out there that are going to need some help, moving out of these properties? How are you guys gearing up for it? And we're doing the same things that we did coming out of the Great Recession, where we're working with the servicers saying, hey, build a little capacity. Try to remember some of the strategies that we put in place that if people needed to go through foreclosure, that they could do that. And we would argue that their capacity is in place because in order to handle the forbearance process, they had to really ratchet up and get their folks up to speed on what was going on with the forbearances. So we think that we're in a really good position that if things move where folks have to move into foreclosure, and we don't suspect that there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to move into foreclosure, that the industry should be able to handle that. Now, why would we not think that there are going to be a lot of people moving into foreclosure? Primarily because we put in a waterfall of different options for people to use when their forbearance period expired. So when they got into forbearance, remember, like consumer, all they had to do was indicate that they had a hardship and they could take a forbearance. And that forbearance initially was 6 to 12 months. Then it was extended to 18 months in case people needed it. Well, what we wanted to do was make sure that people did not run into that 6-month wall, 12-month wall, 18-month wall, and all of a sudden not know what was going to happen on the back end of that. So we began working with our servicers to ensure that they were very proactive in reaching out to a lot of the homeowners out there that had taken on forbearance so that they would be able to ask them and ascertain what type of mitigation are you going to need toward the back end. Are you going to be able to begin your payments as they end it? Are you going to be able to pay more and get yourself current quicker? Or do you need to take everything that was forborne and push it all the way to the back of the mortgage period and just continue to pay as you were, and then you will make that up upon sale or at some other date? Or is there the option that you might need to extend the mortgage, modify your mortgage and extend it for an extended period of time, maybe up to 40 years. We've brought that whole arsenal to bear on these folks. And what we've seen is we've moved a lot of people from forbearance into the mitigation process, and they are maintaining the contracts they've established with us. There's only a very, very small amount of people that are going through the mitigation process and then becoming delinquent. And even those folks, we're still trying to figure out, are there things that we can do? Now, on the back end of that, if there's not, then we're going to move them to foreclosure. And obviously we'll start engaging the remainder of the industry to get those folks through. But we don't expect that that's going to be a huge number of folks. And we think, again, part of the reason is because we've used everything in our quiver, every tool that we have in our toolbox to try to keep people in their housing. That has been our mission prior to the pandemic, is making home ownership possible and sustainable. It was a real emphasis at the onset and through the middle of the pandemic. And now as we're coming out, it remains our focus. Let's make sure that everybody who got through, especially if they were able to get their jobs back, they've gotten their health back, everything's beginning to return to normal. Now we can discuss returning to normal and paying your mortgage, and we'll figure out how to keep you in your home. So we're very happy with the way things have played out so far. And we think that everybody else is seeing the market in about the same way. So, you know, we're very optimistic. And even the economics numbers that we're looking for 2022 look like it's going to be a pretty robust year for mortgage originations. Obviously, refinances are not going to be as high because we've gone through a big cycle of refinances. So that's going to be a smaller portion of the market. But we still think that we're going to have sales similar, or, you know, maybe slightly lower than what we have this year, and those are relatively high. Obviously, you know, the big constraints in the market are the same almost everywhere, with housing supply not being as high as we'd like. And the amount of affordable housing not being as high as we'd like. So one of the things you're going to see us begin to do as we move away from our pandemic focus, from our forbearance and foreclosure mitigation focus, is start thinking about how do we figure out a way to stimulate more affordable housing production, and then how do we figure out a way to provide more funding so that housing that may be on the other side of that affordable pendulum is affordable to some of the consumers that are out there. And we're not just doing that in the single family space, we're doing that in the multifamily space as well, because housing is housing, and that's our focus. So we want people to be able to buy housing. We definitely want that, but we definitely want people to be able to be housed, and we want them to be housed affordably. So I'll talk a little bit about our multifamily. I know you guys don't really know about that, but that we look at that as the pipeline of people who will then be moving into single family. So there's really a couple of things that we're doing that I think you guys might find interesting on the multifamily side. We're trying to provide affordable lending to small mom and pop apartment buildings so that they can keep rents low, right? So if they need to have repairs for roofing, repairs for just basic infrastructure in the building, we're looking for deals where we can get in and provide them with small balance loans to do those things at a very, very reasonable rate. So if you guys happen to know of mom and pop multifamily projects throughout your areas that may be struggling a little bit and are looking for ways to figure out how to do some repairs, let me know. I can plug them into our multifamily team and they can figure out how to do that. Another program that we're putting in place is one that renters are now able to opt in for, and that is as they pay their rent, we're able to start capturing that so we can use it as part of their credit profile. Something that you haven't seen the people haven't done extensively. So we're trying to figure out, how do you use people's ability to pay their rent on time to help them qualify for their mortgages? This is another attempt to try to utilize as much information as we can to help make housing, when you want to purchase a home, affordable and within reach of the populace that's out there. So those are two things that we think are pretty big going on the multifamily side. You might hear about that a little bit more as the year ends and the next year begins. On the single family side, it's all related to trying to figure out how to make housing sustainable. How do we make the ability to purchase housing equitable? And then this idea of how do we stimulate supply in the marketplace? I'll talk about supply first, because I know a lot of people are always very interested in how we're trying to do that. And we're looking at a number of different options out there to try to get out there. One, we're looking at different property types to be utilized in different markets. One of the things that we're looking to do is to buy more manufactured housing loans. We already buy a lot of loans where the manufactured home is associated with the property. But we're also trying to figure out, is there a way that those property types can be motivated or incentivized to be used in urban settings? Now, I don't know if you guys have taken a look at a lot of the new manufactured housing out there, but it doesn't look like your traditional manufactured housing. They're building it so that it looks like site built. That's intentional. One of the reasons that it wasn't being zoned so that it could fit in as infill is because it was negative on the property values of the surrounding markets. Now it looks like it's not having that same effect. So we're working with appraisers. We're looking at at the different product performance that's out there and trying to figure out how much more of this can we purchase. And if we begin to purchase a lot of it, maybe what that will do is incentivize municipalities to now look at that as a viable alternative to some site built stuff, right? That's going on out there. Specifically, if they have a larger populace that needs affordable housing and they have area that can be infilled. So we're looking at that. So manufactured housing is a significant play for us in that space. We're also trying to make sure that people recognize that, you still don't need 20% to purchase a home. Granted, you can put 3% down with FHA, but that also comes with their insurance associated with it, that it resides with the life of the loan. With the GSEs, it's not the case. Once you get to a 19.5% equity, you can then begin to have your mortgage insurance removed. And one of the things that we want folks to know is, yes, there is a viable option out there. We've got 3% mortgages, we have 5% mortgages. Our mortgages also work with down payment assistance programs offered throughout the country, be they national DPAs or local or state. You can layer as much of that on top of our product so that the person purchasing the home has the ability to get in. One of the things that we recognize is that the down payment and the payment of closing costs are the biggest obstacles that most consumers run into outside of the credit issue. So we're trying to figure out, we're not trying to figure out, we just trying to get the word out that there are options for consumers, specifically in these markets where things are slightly unaffordable. But again, we're trying to figure out how do we get more affordable in there. And even if the more affordable product does come online, this 3% down, this 5% down, along with all the down payment assistance that can be layered on top of it, is still available to all consumers out there. We recognize that it takes a little more work to work with your down payment assistance programs, but I will say this, that's only because of the paperwork on their side. That's not on the bank side or on the Freddie Mac or the GSE side. We are prepared to walk down the road with your consumer to help them get into the house. So, and especially if you're working with down payment assistance programs, we encourage that. So we've got that going on the single family side as well. And then on the equitable side, we're definitely beginning to look at products and services that are out there to make sure that populaces that have been underserved in the past, some that remain underserved and displaced from the marketplace, are getting information appropriate so they know that they can get into the marketplace, as well as having access to products and services through our lending partners so they can get out into the marketplace and purchase homes. Part of the reason for that, it's because, well, one is because it's the right thing to do, but the other thing is, if you take a look at the trends in the country and you take a look at the populaces that are beginning to grow and the ones that are going to drive housing over the next 20 to 40 to 50 years, a lot of those are in these groups that we would consider underserved. So one of the things that we're trying to do is get ahead of that curve, educate that populace as much as possible, let them know that there's product and services out there for them, get them into the marketplace, and then ensure that our lending partners are in the same state of mind, looking to try to ensure that this populace does have a fair shot at getting housing at a affordable rate. So that's kind of what we've got going on. And it seems like it's a whole lot as we transition from the pandemic on out into trying to focus on some of these new frontiers, if you will. But I would say this, the one thing that's very interesting is the pandemic did not really impact us the way folks thought that it might, meaning all of the tools that we are using now to help people handle forbearance and then mitigate it are all tools that we've had in the past. These are tools that we utilize for natural disasters. So anytime there's a hurricane, tornado, flood, earthquake, fire, we've used them. We even used most of them when people ran into divorce, death of a spouse, and things like that. So it was nothing brand new that we really had to come up with. It was just a matter of saying, hey, you know what? We can apply this. Let's apply it all. And boom, once we got that and made sure that everybody knew that these things were now able to be applied to this. That was that was the golden moment. That was the moment when everything kind of came together. So moving away from that, transitioning to trying to figure out this sustainable space, this equitable space, this affordable housing supply space is not going to be as hard as it seems, because the pandemic stuff we know. These other areas we've dabbled in, and now we're beginning to really focus to ensure that we have the ability to move forward. So with that, what I'll do is I'll tell you, so we've had some turmoil, some changes going on in the stuff that we're doing, but that's not the only changes that we've had, and we're still trying to navigate where we're going from here. I mean, we know that there was a change in the overall administration at the beginning of the year. That also fostered a change at our regulator, and we have a new interim director there. And she is extremely focused on a lot of the things that I mentioned. She wants to see equitable housing as a mission focus. She wants to see more affordable housing come online, and she wants us to figure out a way to spur that on. And she likes the innovation that we're working on, where we're trying to figure out how to provide more opportunities for renters to have more credit or more information around them so that we can make better decisions about their ability to purchase. So that's kind of where we are right now in terms of the new things that are going on at Freddie Mac, what the landscape looks like, a little bit about the view that we see going forward. And at that point, I've probably been talking about 20 minutes, and I know you guys, if you're like my kids or any of my friends, you get tired of hearing me chat, and you'd prefer to ask a couple of questions. So I'll open it up there. If there aren't a lot of questions, and obviously I can just dig in and I'll just keep going, but I know that I don't want to turn you guys to stone, so I'll invite some questions.
Tony, I do have a couple of questions. As far as you had mentioned affordable housing, working with the municipalities, how are you using just the cities and the towns to do that, or are you bringing in private businesses? How is that all being implemented? And then the other thing is, as far as education, because I've been a real estate agent almost 20 years now, and you and I are both in the business of we're all in the business of home ownership. So affordable housing has always been a challenge, but with the pandemic and with the shortage of houses listings, the prices have gone through the roof. And I know I'm not the only one, with multitudes of families that are sitting on the fence that can't buy a house because they're priced out of the market. So can you kind of talk about how you're educating? I haven't seen a whole lot of education, so maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but what are you doing and how are you doing it? And how can we as agents be that source for you as well?
Okay, no, that's a great question. And there's a whole lot in there. So one, we aren't just working with state governments, local municipalities. We're working with nonprofit organizations. We're working with the different builders that are in areas. We're working with different real estate shops that are in areas. Like I said, the small trade, not the small trade associations, but all the trade associations that touch housing, we're working with. Even folks that have put together nonprofits that are on the periphery of housing, but touch it, or somehow they are being influenced by it. We're having conversations with them. Now, all of these are very disparate all over the place, right? So what we're doing in, say, Louisiana or Georgia or Michigan and Wisconsin is going to be different from what you see in, say, Maryland, Massachusetts, Florida, and North Carolina and California, and it would be the same out in Arizona. We do have borrower help centers all around the country, and there is one that is in Phoenix. I'll share the contact information with you guys after the session. I'll get the address and which organization that is. And we work with them to get information out there. But we also work, like I said, with real estate professional organizations. We also work with our lender shops. So what you'll see from time to time, or as often as we can get folks out there, you'll have, there'll be LO training that talks about a lot of what we're doing. There will be real estate professional training that talks a lot about what we're doing. We'll get in front of housing counselors and talk a lot about what we're doing. If we're trying to specifically talk about the utilization of, say, manufactured housing, we will convene a number of folks, a number of different organizations in the market where we think that could be viable. And we can't reach out directly to the municipalities, but these different organizations can, and they'll bring in, say, the city planner, they'll bring in some of the zoning folks that talk about the utilization of alternative dwelling units and things like that, to just give us a feel of what's going on and why things have occurred the way they are, and whether or not they're open to some of the suggestions that we're getting from either the nonprofits or academics that we do work with. I mean, there are organizations like the Urban Institute that we're constantly working with, or the Harvard Joint Center for Housing, where we're constantly in contact with them. You got organizations, the academics out of UCLA and USC, down at the University of Texas, New York University. All these guys have a focus on housing, and we engage them all the time to talk about, what are the studies that you guys are putting out in the marketplace? Why did you do that? What are you seeing? Then we take that information and we go to the nonprofits that are at the local level and say the same thing. This is what the academics are seeing. This is what our business sees. So these are the numbers for this market. This is what we're seeing come through. Why the disconnect? What is the issue? Is there a way that we can work together? And we've decided that that's probably the best way to move forward, because one, we know that there is no one silver bullet for housing. All markets are different. And now we know that we can't know all the markets, so we don't have expertise in-house in every market in all 3,200 counties in the United States, thereabouts. So we need to utilize our friends on the ground. And this is my plug to you guys. So where you guys see deficiency or opportunity, one of the things that I would ask you to do is to share that with us. Because like I said, we're not in every community. We're in every community in the sense that we buy mortgages everywhere, all the time. If I did a map of Arizona, if I did a map of Phoenix, if I did a map of any of the markets you guys touch, I can show you thousands of loans that we've purchased in your markets. Does that mean we know your market? No, it doesn't. It just means we purchase it. What we need to know is, what are the dynamics in your marketplace? So to the extent that you can share those with us, that's beneficial, not just to us, so that we can make sure there are appropriate products out there. It's beneficial to your consumer, and it's beneficial to the people who are building the policy, so they know what it looks like on the ground. That's the one thing that I would say, that all of us who are kind of working in this space, who are in these larger organizations that have a lot of money invested, is we see the big numbers coming back at us. But what we don't see is the individual impact that these smaller numbers are making. And that's what we need to see. So that's kind of our strategy out there.
I want to throw out there on that note, and I texted you on this day, but to everybody else, and I haven't yet worked on it, but I'm going to make it happen. I was at a NAREP event, about a month ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, and the city planner for Buckeye was there, and he was saying that they recognize the issue, and their thought process is along the same lines with the manufactured housing. And he said that they lifted all of their zoning restrictions on manufactured housing. And now in Buckeye, people can put a manufactured home anywhere. And so if you guys think it would be helpful, I do. So I'm thinking I want to do this, but give me your feedback when you get my follow-up email after this. Reply and tell me, I want to create one of these type of Zoom meetings with that city planner and Tony, and maybe some city planners from other cities. If any of you have a connection, feel free, pass that on to me. And I would love to have them all talking about this together. I think that would be awesome, to create those connections and let us, get information from them all at once, kind of like a panel on Zoom.
Yeah.
So if you have connections, pass them on. Right, and if you think it's a good idea, let me know.
Can I say something as well? Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Alicia. And to piggyback on what you're saying, it's like this alternative housing. So like, I've always been interested and passionate about like tiny homes. And I've actually now started researching this like shed to home conversion, like they can be just as big. Like some of these shed to homes can be like 16 by 52 feet. They're huge. But there aren't really any financing options except for the actual builders that build them, and they're more like hard money loans. And so I was thinking, because a lot of people right now, they're wanting to move out of the city and into the country and purchase land and then put these dwellings on there. And is there going to be any opportunity for those to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the big issues that we have is that some of the smaller homes that are out there will be low balance loans. And one of the things that we've not done in the past and we've not done very well are low balance loans. So part of the affordable effort is to figure out how can we do more of those low balance loans so we can pick up not just, say, the tiny homes, but there are homes throughout the United States in many different markets, not in the market that I live in, but in many different markets where you can buy a decent size home for like $50,000 to $75,000. Hard to get conventional conforming money for that because it's such a small balance loan. And we're trying to figure out, how can we do that better? How does it become viable for us to do? So that's something else that we're looking into, so that you may be able to see more of that business begin to occur over the next few years. We're not there yet, but we're definitely working to try to get there because we know that that's a large space, in particular in areas that are outside of a lot of the larger municipalities. So like, if you think about housing from where I am, I live just outside of Washington, D.C. Everything from Washington, D.C. all the way up to Boston that goes out, maybe 100 miles inland does not fit that category of small balance loans. But if you go well past that, right, and you go south, you've got a ton of people that are out there that could utilize refinancing ability, that could utilize purchase ability, and we're trying to figure that out. And that's outside of the manufactured housing space. So yeah, we're trying to figure that out. The other piece that piggybacks on that tiny home discussion is the utilization of ADUs. Now, I will say we've always funded ADUs when they are viewed as a addition to the normal house, and they're tied to the home and the property. What people have been asking for recently, and this is something we're trying to figure out how to do, and it is complicated, is folks have their home, they have a mortgage on their house, and it's associated with the land, and now they want to put a separate structure on the property that is financed separately, and trying to figure out how the mechanics of that will work is tough. And it's not as simple as it sounds, because you already have a structure on the real estate, right? So you'd be building chattel, but it's not like manufactured homes, which don't sit on the property that they own. It's actually a structure of its own that would have a value, and that potentially would go up in value, and you could charge rent and things like that from it. So the key becomes, how do you collateralize that? How do you build a vehicle around that people would want to invest in? How do you build a vehicle that would allow for, if there was ever a delinquency or the need for foreclosure, you'd be able to handle that? So those are some of the things that people are beginning to work on to try to figure that portion out. But do we want to get there? We absolutely do. And if you want to build on this alternative dwelling unit on your property and have it attached to the initial mortgage or a new mortgage that you have for all the structures and the property, you can do that right now, as long as it meets an appraised value, right? But if you want to do this wholly separate thing, that's something that the whole industry is trying to figure out. How do we make that work? And we know that there are lots of folks out there that would love for us to do that, and that could be a viable way to add some affordable housing, but we're not, again, quite there yet. I will let you guys know this. That's been a discussion that has been occurring for the last couple of years, and and so people have paid a great deal of attention to it. And I'll tell you that part of the reason is it came out of the West. So folks in Arizona and California and Oregon up to Washington all expressed interest and a need for this, and that drove the conversation over here. We don't have it as extensively on the East Coast, but you're beginning to see it pop up in places like Florida and up in Michigan, definitely, and places like that. So it's something that's beginning to take on a life of its own, and we're trying to address
Okay, I have a client right now, 2 dwellings on the same property, 2 different loans, wanted to refi and put it all in one loan, and I couldn't find a way to do it. So
Yeah,
when you get that program going, tell me.
yeah, that's a ways away. I'm surprised I mean, it's I just want to know that that's not a Freddie loan. As long as you tell me that's not a Freddie Mac loan, I'm happy. So yeah, that's something that needs to be worked out, because like you said, there are a lot of folks out there that have an interest in that and are moving in that direction for them in terms of additional income, or even to house family, but they don't want to have that burden of that alternative, that additional house on the original that they've got there. So trying to figure that out is something that we're looking into.
May I add to that?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. It's funny you brought up the ADUs, accessory dwelling units. I'm in California, in Southern California, so we're huge on that. Now, my understanding, and I think the biggest issue that we have with the ADU financing is that as of now, unless something has changed recently, the rental income, because most of those properties are rented out by the owners who I'm not saying that isn't used by family as well, but the vast majority are rented out for rental income by the owners of the properties. And the rental income is not allowed to be used for qualifying purposes when you're refinancing and all of that. It's one of the guidelines that it doesn't allow the rental income for that property to be used, or when you're purchasing it, you cannot use the rental income that second dwelling. And here we have ADUs and JADUs, which is accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units.
Yeah.
So do you think that's something that might be coming down the road where they'll allow the rental income for these units? Because even the city sees these units as multifamily now. They don't see them as single family residences anymore.
So the juniors, I don't know much about. We just look at everything as if it's an ADU. I guess we're going to have to now begin to look, establish a level of specificity if that's the way some of them are being categorized out.
Permitted as.
Yeah, permitted out in California, and possibly other places. In terms of the rental, I'm going to have to go back and take a look at that, because we do allow a portion of rental payments to be calculated in the purchase. Now, the refinance, that may be different. But when you're purchasing a property, especially if you've got a unit associated with the property, even if it's not a ADU, meaning it's its own separate structure, but you've got somebody who's going to be living inside your structure, who's going to be contributing payment to you, so rent, you can use that in the qualification to get into the house. Now, I'm going to have to see what the refinance piece looks like, and I'll send that to Alicia so she can distribute to the rest of the folks. And I'll also get the policy related to just utilization of rental income. Now, it's not the entire amount of rental income. There is a calculation there, right? But there is the ability to use rental income to help the homeowner qualify for the mortgage. That has been in place for a bit, but let me check into it to ensure that I've got my I's dotted and T's crossed, and I will pass both the refinance issue if we don't allow that and the rationale for it, and I will pass along the language related to the ability to use that for the initial origination.
That would be great, because as far as I know, once the appraiser marks that property as an ADU, the second unit, they're not allowing us to use the income.
All right.
For it. Okay, so anything would be helpful. I'll go back to the underwriters.
So yeah, let me check, and I will double check.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you for your.
I'll pass that on to Alicia, and she'll pass it on to the crew.
All right, thank you.
Tony, I had a quick question for you about a program that you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
You had mentioned something about the balance sheet programs that Freddie has for the smaller mom and pop, sort of single user.
On the multifamily side,
Yeah, multifamily side.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a big contingent in that is the seniors looking for affordable living, situations. So what I've seen is a lot of people converting single-use family homes into multi-use senior living kind of facilities almost, where they would rent out, each bedroom as a unit and create, basically their own privately owned senior living facilities, or maybe a investment owner with a portfolio would convert, a handful of properties, not a great, large company, private owner.
Yeah.
But are there any programs that Freddie has for the conversion of those properties to make them ADA accessible and into, what would meet the guidelines and the codes for senior living?
See, outside of our normal renovation and refi programs, we don't have anything specifically focused on that. And one of the issues I think we're going to have with those properties is it's the conversion of a single family property that would be deemed, well, it still is a 1 to 4 unit property. So when we talk multifamily, we're talking 5+ units or more. So the low balance loans I'm talking about would be on a 5+ unit dwelling. But that's interesting that you mentioned that you've got this conversion of, say, a single family property into one that's going to be, it's still a single family property, but they're renting out each individual room as a senior living dwelling. Okay. That's something that I'm going to have to take back and see. I can't say that I've heard a lot of people talking about that, but obviously that's not just, I see a lot, because I saw a lot of heads nodding. That's not something
very common here in Arizona.
Yeah. So that's something that we're going to need to take a look at.
It's
Because I can
common in
honestly tell you that's
California.
not something that I've heard a lot about here, but there probably are folks in the organization who have. So let me put that out as well. I'm gonna make my small list of stuff while we talk, so I can make sure I don't forget.
Oh my God, I love that we're giving you homework.
Tony, I will agree with Patrick. We do have a lot of senior, the states that have a lot of senior situations are Arizona, Florida, California, and we are probably states that are also stretched with resources.
Mhm.
So affordable housing for seniors there's no affordable housing for seniors right now. So I'm seeing that because I'm also at SRES designation and I work in the senior industry, and that is probably the top problem that we're seeing in the senior industry. So anything that could help that would be helpful on that end. But I do want to get back real quick to the forbearances and the foreclosure situation, because I have a servicing account. My question to you is, do you see that a lot of the ones that are having problems getting out of the forbearance, are those the ones that were having problems prior to the pandemic? Because that's what I have kind of noticed, is it seems like the ones that were having issues doing a mitigation type situation are the ones that were having problems way back in the beginning. They were already in pre-foreclosure prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that we've seen some of that. We've been hearing some of that as well. But again, the big thing that we're trying to do is work with them as best as we can. One, not trying to, obviously we can't put them out of their properties during the moratorium, nor do we want to. But what we've been trying to do is figure out, can we work with them any way to get their situation addressed so that they can, going forward, sustainably handle the mortgage. So we've been looking at everything. And that's why I mentioned even modifications. Now, the one thing that we have to admit, and I think everybody else is going to have to admit, is that not everyone is going to survive this with their home in place. There are going to be foreclosures. So the other thing that we're trying to do is make sure that we can help prepare people to move on as smoothly as possible. And I think we've had a very long runway for a lot of folks. And one of the things that has been, I think, is going to be beneficial, or people will possibly view as beneficial, is because we've had this long runway. We've had an opportunity to sit down and speak with a lot of these folks who are having problems. And not everybody likes to speak with their lender, but we have really tried to make a concerted effort to reach everyone who was in forbearance. And as we were trying to get them out of forbearance, to sit down and have a conversation and say, what are the options that you need? Will this work? Will this work? Will this work? Indeed, we've tried with some people a number of different options. And as we've come to the end of that rope, we can sit back and know that we've tried, and that their circumstances may not have recovered enough or have been in a good enough position to stay in the home. So now we have to help them move out, and that's where we are with some. It's not as many people, like I said, but yeah, we're hearing that there are some. There were some that, like you said, that were having issues prior, and there are some folks that weren't having any issues that took on the forbearance, but due to circumstance, their job hasn't come back. Maybe they lost too much during the pandemic. One of their partners passed or something like that, or they are incapacitated now and don't have the ability to get back out and earn like they did prior. And with everything that we've thrown at their problem, we still don't have the appropriate solution to maintain them in their home. So those folks we're definitely working with to try to help them move on as smoothly as possible. Yeah, it looks like we're about like 3 minutes to go. Anybody? I saw the question about the 1031 exchange, so I'll send information related to our small balance loans and multifamily properties.
Patrick, is your hand up intentionally? You want to unmute?
Yeah, so that somebody put in the chat, what about selling their property? A lot of people cannot pay and don't realize they have equity. Absolutely. Short sales are still available out there. I mean, that's something that has always been in the arsenal, right? So if you can do that, or even if they don't have to sell short, they've got equity, and maybe in this market where you've got crazy appreciation, sell the property if you can't maintain. I mean, definitely that is an option, right? And if it has to be a short sale, we've got the mechanisms in place, and our lender partners know about that, because again, that was a big issue coming out of the Great Recession. So we've gone through, they have all of the rules that we put in place back then. They have not changed that much. So they're all up to speed on that. So if folks need to sell, I would sell, and I would say that that's probably a great option, considering that demand is high and supply is low, right? All right. So ladies, I think we're about 4 o'clock on my side. So I guess it's 2 o'clock on your side. I'm sure you guys are absolutely tired of hearing me talk, but I'm glad to see that there have been no faces turned to stone. My mom tells me I have a face made for radio, but you guys have to look at it. So
oh, your mom
great.
said that. Tell your mom it's not true.
Hey, look, I can't tell my mom anything.
I understand that.
So.
Well, I want to absolutely thank you for giving of your time and being here with us today. Again, thank you, Lydia, for initiating this and getting it started. I will send out some of the follow-up information to everyone that I promised. The video link if you want to watch the recording again, and some of the information I said I would send. And then Tony, as I get stuff from you, I will make sure that I distribute it out to the group.
Yep.
And I hope everyone feels like it was time well spent. I feel like we got some great information. And, again, if you found value, thank Lydia, and you can thank my team and show us that you found value by partnering with us with your buyers. So unless anyone else has anything else to say, I'm going to say goodbye. Have a wonderful evening. And thank you all for logging in and spending your time with us.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
No
you,
worries.
everyone.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you, Tony.